Life has proven to me countless times that there is no such thing as luck, only opportunity meaning preparation. Luck is merely the illusion of choices and practice colliding with a moment, a day, an hour. Life has also proven that some opportunities are equal to others, their emotional value a price tag clearly stated and repeated. Others are priceless. There's some people's work in this life that you like well enough to pay attention to well enough. Then others who you connect with in a way that helps you interpret, that just makes sense. Informed not by force, but by frequency. Their influence indelible. George Stroumboulopoulos, interviewer, journalist, disruptor, punk kid makes good. The type of guy no one has anything bad to say about. And if you're lucky, a cool story. I think whoever said don't meet your heroes just needed better heroes. I'm Marty Young, and this is Young, Modern World.
Oh, hi, my name is George.
Oh, nice.
You're very beloved to a certain frequency of person, you know? You're like at every stage of your career over a bunch of different mediums. You've been the person that's, you know, informed us, challenged us, entertained us, like comforted us. How do you feel about being that?
I try not to think about it because as much as people have been very kind to me, and I certainly have found a really nice relationship and cultivated a nice relationship with people. There are also lots of people who do not like what I do. So I kind of, I exist somewhere in the middle, but I know that I pretty much have always just been myself, for better or for worse. And so I'm comfortable with how people feel about me, because whether they like me or don't like me, it's based on me, and that's fine. But I don't need people to have a certain relationship with me if who I'm presenting is fake. So I'm grateful to have that place in people's lives, for sure. I'm particularly grateful because there's, as you'd said, there's a couple of ways I've been able to do that. For a whole group of people, it's music and ideas. For another group, it's connecting them to current events and news. And then another group, it's about conversations. So it's really about the exploration of the human experience. So I haven't done it in just one way.
Yeah.
That's what I really like about it. So I feel like I'm making the most out of this experience. Here's how I try to operate. I try to operate like a bison. Bisons are one of the few animals that when a big storm comes, the bison is one of the few animals that does not run away from the storm. They walk into it because they know they'll get out of the other side quicker. And so most animals can't do that. I can. And I looked at the big battles that were happening around in my life with my friends and my family, and I just thought, be the bison. Just fucking walk through the storm together. Don't let this divide us. Let's just get through it. Yeah. We'll get on the other side quicker. And while everybody's running, they're just delaying the inevitability of this. Let's just walk through it together. We'll be okay.
I think people have such a like nostalgia and love for the scenes they came of age in, you know, like whether it's punk, ska, metal, Stamp Club. What paint me a picture of like the scenes you came of age in and those places that like only, you know, exist in your memories.
Being about 10 or 11 years old I moved from Rexdale to Malton, the west side of Toronto, right? By the airport to where I lived. From the late 70s into the early 80s, there were a few things that were happening scene-wise. So all of our scenes were really connected to music.
Yeah.
That was how my group, I didn't play sports. I watched sports, but I didn't play sports. So my only clubs were really my friends who liked music.
And did you chill with like the sports dudes? Like, were you like,
no,
you weren't like that?
Didn't chill with the sports dudes. Didn't chill. It was me and about four other long hairs.
Yeah.
Really, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was Venom, Slayer, Metallica, because we liked AC/DC and Maiden and all that. But these Venom, Slayer, Metallica were the first that felt like our bands. They were ours, right? And they were slightly heavier, so the older generation didn't quite get it. So it was the first time that we had a bit of a division. And then because I didn't grow up in a scene that was a downtown cool scene, we also fell in love with the Sex Pistols.
Yeah.
And as I got older, the Clash became a far more impactful band to me. But at the time, the Clash were still a little bit, the Pistols were just gnarlier.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was easy for me at 15 to go from Slayer to Guns N' Roses to the Pistols. And it all felt like Damage.
And what did your shows look like? Like, what shows did you hit up on Saturday with those,
Well, back then there were no shows out there. So the only shows that we went to were hardcore shows in church basements.
Yeah.
So it would be a church basement that would have a show. And because no one had money, I worked at a movie theater at the time, and I drove a forklift at the airport, but no one had money. So the idea of every now and then, I remember going down to Maple Leaf Gardens in the 80s to see Metallica. I remember seeing, bands like AC/DC, bands like that, the really big ones at the Gardens.
Yeah.
But I was too young to get into bars here. So I snuck into a few, but mostly it was just punk or metal shows in basements of community centers or churches in my neighborhood. Yeah.
And do you remember any of those, like those bands or like any characters from that scene, that time?
Yeah, I'm friends with some of them still. You know some of them too. Sergio. Yeah. The band that really, was there was a band called Dirge in my neighborhood. The high school kids, I was a little bit older at this point, but they started to make a bit of a name for themselves. And so that was one of the bands that we remember. But it's interesting because I think about how so many people that I've interviewed over the years who became big in music, we were all really, really informed by bands no one has ever heard of outside of our scenes.
Yeah.
So these cassettes that were circulating around our neighborhoods were so crucial to us, but nobody in 5 cities over really knew about these bands. And that's why I think the power of the Misfits was actually really interesting, because the Misfits tapes sounded like the recordings of our bands, where, Glenn singing way back in the distance on the vocals. It was just sounded like somebody put one microphone in a room and hit record.
Yeah.
So those Misfits tapes started to circulate, Minor Threat tapes started to circulate. And there was just something about it that felt like us.
Yeah.
And I think, coming from the generation that I came from, one of the greatest crimes you could commit was to be a poser. There were legendary shows about how Slayer played a show in San Francisco one night early in their career, and they were treated mercilessly by the crowd because they were wearing eyeliner.
Yeah.
And that was the last time they ever wore eyeliner, right? Because they looked like they were just faking it. What are you trying to be? And so in our neighborhoods, the sounds of the Misfits, we could do that and not feel like we were faking it. But if we tried to be AC/DC, we can't do that.
Yeah.
Right. So at least for some of us, and I wasn't really into Kiss. A lot of my friends were into Kiss. That kind of missed me, but I liked a couple songs, but I got into the Misfits, and the Misfits sounded, so that was one of the bands that kind of transcended, you know?
Yeah. When you hear the Misfits for the first time, it's like before Misfits and then very much after Misfits.
I went and saw Misfits a few years ago with Danzig at a show in LA. It was packed, and the range of age was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Pretty incredible.
It's iconic. Like in my world, like seeing the specials.
Yeah.
The few times that I've gotten to see the specials, it was just like and the first time you hear that, it's absolutely, it's very much a before and after type thing.
Totally. Pistols were like that for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. We hadn't heard anything. When Johnny screams that lyric, fuck this, fuck that, fuck all the fuckers, fucking, we'd never heard anything. I was 7, 8 years old, right? Never heard anything like that.
Yeah.
Nothing like that. And so much of rock and roll, and we listened to a lot of rock music at the time, was directly influenced by the blues. And the Pistols did a thing where you didn't hear the blues in it. You just heard something completely different. It felt so fresh.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard anything like that before. And then, of course, Johnny, I think, is as complicated as he is as a public persona, was just so underrated for what he meant to us.
Yeah. You've seen so many different phases of culture, not just in punk rock, but like in general. What's something that you thought would turn out vastly differently?
I don't know. I remember in the early 80s, mid 80s, really, when hip hop was growing, I, as a cultural revolution, you knew it was going to be massive, right? It got to its bling era a little bit quicker than maybe I thought it would. Music videos played a part. I think culturally things were different around the world. So, but I love hip hop, but I didn't expect it to be
You thought it would be more political than.
Yeah, maybe I
than-
hoped it would
yeah.
hold on to its fight a little longer. I think it's also just the big, like the U.S. corporate industry machine is just a vortex that will ultimately suck everything into it.
Well, like you
Right.
said, all your problems are because of pop.
Yeah, I did say that once, didn't I? Yeah. You get diabetes of the brain if you listen to it too much.
Yeah,
Diabetes
not
of
and
the
and to
soul.
clarify, when
Yeah.
you said that, all of your problems. One time
I
on
was
a
doing a
live
live
stream,
stream,
you
yeah.
on the live stream, and there was this person, and they were just going through some brokenhearted teen stuff, and you stopped the live stream and you said, Listen, you'll be all right. One, and also all of your problems are because of pop, not as a music. Like
Yeah.
there's some wicked pop songs, but
But
it's
I
an
believe that-
ideology.
Yeah, I believe 75% of that to be true. I really do. I think it's if you put garbage in, you'll get garbage out. I think you should put garbage in because I think life's hard and you should have fun. Sports is that. Sports is pop, right? It's just I'm fine with all that, but music is so powerful that it has to be stuff that matters for it to matter over time.
Yeah.
I believe that. But again, that's just my bias. That's my bias listening to the kind of music that I like. But even in the 80s, the pop music was unbelievable. If you think about in that Cold War era, like Frankie Goes to Hollywood, just gigantic pop
Yeah.
sensations. But they had, was it Reagan and Brezhnev, fighting in a ring. They were talking, Small Town Boy, Bronski Beat, Bronski Beat, like really, really important lyrics, really important video, heartbreaking, gigantic pop success. 99 Red Balloons from Nina, like
Yeah.
the pop music. U2 was a pop sensation, and they were more of a punk and a rock band in terms of their interests. But the pop bands in the 80s were so colossally connected to what was happening in the world.
Yeah.
That's what's faded. And so I'm a big believer in the politics of the interior are important to explore,
Yeah.
but don't live there.
Yeah.
The politics of what's happening out here, that's universal.
All the best pop is when there is a little bit of that rebel spirit.
Yes.
Like whether it's queer, whether it's some kind of otherness.
Yeah.
And that's
Yep.
that's what ultimately makes people either project it onto the pop music or really like connect with it,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm straight edge. You're straight edge
Yeah,
also.
well, I don't drink. Yeah. Or do you drink? Yes. Yeah.
What does that look like in your life?
It's not as much fun as I used to be, but I'm alive, so that's the key.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's healthier. It just means I spend I'm a very I don't care about life as much as I probably should. I'm not wired to survive, so I've had to build guardrails to keep me alive.
What do you mean not wired to survive?
I don't care. I think life's mostly meaningless, and I think that this is just some blip on on an evolutionary scale. And I read a lot of history, and I watch a lot of historical documentaries, and you just look at where none of this means anything in the big picture. None of this means anything. So, but I actually feel that way. So I don't want to collapse under the weight of the nothingness. So instead, I just sit back and go, all right, well, I guess I'm just going to try to live a life of purpose. I'm going to try to find a way to do good things, but I got to build a lot of guardrails up, because if I don't, I'll just blow my brains out making bad choices.
Yeah.
Making bad choices, because I will do that, because I can very easily get up in the morning and sit back and say, what am I going to do today? Well, why? It doesn't matter. None of this matters, right? So I have to create some rules for me.
And does it also manifest in creating challenges? Because that's something that is very notable in your
how I make my life difficult.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like you not necessarily make your life difficult, but you're somebody that goes after not the easy thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I think it's
something.
because my tastes lie somewhere in the margins, and the margins are always the rougher places.
Yeah.
I was in Syria, and it was a different conversation I was having he was the country director for the World Food Program, and he was talking about philosophy, and he said, if you want to water roses, you got to water thorns too.
Yeah.
And most people don't want to water thorns. I tend to be the guy that's more in the thorns. Now it's strange because I made a large part of my career in the middle, really at CBC. But if you look back at my time at The Edge or my time at Much Music, I wasn't the guy that was talking about the most popular bands in the world. I was doing just the outside of it. I wasn't doing the pop stuff. I wasn't doing the big, I mean, aside from like your U2s and things like that, I wasn't doing the middle of the road stuff. When I got to CBC, even the first few years, it was more of an outsider-y kind of show.
Yeah. And when you were doing those things, why those interviews were so distinctive is because you were still approaching it with that, you were still watering the, I think about, like you would get a way of asking the person about the thorns.
That's what I find interesting, because I find that's the thing that will drive you at 3 a.m. when you can't fall asleep. That's what's spiraling in your head, the viewer, right? Or the listener, or any human being. So that's the part I want to connect to, and I've done it with varying degrees of success and failure over my years. So it is a challenge, but I don't do it because it's a challenge. I do it because it's interesting.
Yeah.
And that's really what I find is what motivates me anyway. I'm not a particularly motivated person. I'm not a particularly...
How could you say that, George?
I know, but I'm not. But I'm not. I'm not particularly motivated, not even particularly ambitious. What I really am is disciplined. I'm really disciplined. And I think that goes back to what I was saying a few moments ago of this is how I keep myself healthy and alive.
Yeah.
Is by being disciplined.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to work out. I don't want to eat healthy. I don't want to do any of the shit that's good for you. I don't want to. I would much rather eat a hamburger and drink a beer. And I was dating a girl, and it was really funny because I don't drink. And she said, "Hey, so you would never drink?" I said, "No." She said, "So one day we'll never have wine together?" And I said, No. She goes, "Oh, I think that'd be nice." And I was like, Huh. And then not that long after, she was at my house. I had gotten up early, like 6:30 in the morning. And she had come down at around 7:30 in the morning or 8 in the morning. And I was drinking a non-alcoholic beer at like 7 or 8 in the morning. And she said, "Are you drinking a non-alcoholic beer at 7 or 8 in the morning?" And I said, "This is my third of the morning. I'll have one at 4:30 in the morning. I'll have one at 5. I'll just crush them all day long." I don't, because that's just that's how I am.
Yeah.
So I have to find ways to convince myself to be healthy.
Yeah.
And the way I do it is with discipline.
You don't get any sense of accomplishment. You don't feel a sense of accomplishment. But so does that manifest in it's enough, or does that keep you chasing the next thing?
I hear people talk about it's enough.
Yeah,
right? All the time.
That's a big.
Yeah. It's never been interesting to me. What is it? Enough to whom? To myself? Who cares? I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody, not even myself. Like I know why it matters. I guess, listen, you grow up in my age group, a certain kind of age group. We're talking about how we're kind of the lost generation, the abandoned generation, my kids, but we weren't really abandoned.
And you certainly weren't.
Well, our parents had jobs, people worked, people worked. So I grew up where this idea of how I felt was not that important.
No, because you had to get to work.
Yeah. And I have to tell you, I don't think that's good for everybody, but it was totally fine for me. I don't need the validation. I want people to like what I do so that they keep coming back to it, so I can keep doing it because I like doing it. Yeah. And I feel like I act responsibly. I actually care about people watching. I really do care about the thing. But I don't get any sense of accomplishment for it, because I know that for me to be even remotely successful, there are hundreds of people that played a role in teaching me this 15 years ago or 30 years ago or whatever. So I'm just the face of a group effort in a way. And in some cases, I'm the leader of the group effort. And in some cases, I'm just a conduit for a group effort, but I'm the result of a group effort. People in my neighborhood who cared, people who I work with today, who I worked with for years, who care. And that's the thing that I find really interesting. The what it's worth and how I feel. I don't care about any of that shit, and I never really did. The only thing I really do care about is if I don't put all the effort in, and I don't actually pull it off, and I know it's because I didn't do it, then I'm annoyed, because I'm like, fuck, that was the easiest thing to do. Yeah, was to figure it out.
Yeah, it's like if you're gonna show up, show up.
Yeah, I still have that toxic Gen X male work ethic, right? Which I know is not good, but it's what I like, right? Which is go all in all the time, all in all the time. I don't care about that I don't care about the damage it causes to me. Go all in all the time. It's unhealthy.
Yeah.
I'm 3 o'clock this morning.
But you have to be careful what you sign your name to. Like whatever it is, whoever you have to care about what you sign your name to.
They're never all right because there's no stasis. It's always working, always towards a thing. Because I've made lots of money in my career. I've been very lucky. I get that. I've had a privileged position, but it's only because I show up to do a thing. I'm not wealthy. And the people who never, ever have to work and whose family don't have to work, I don't have any idea what that's like.
Yeah.
But also,
what's it like to be in those rooms though? Then like after, you know what I mean? You make it, you go to a certain echelon. I talked to Rick about this. Yeah. It's like, then all of a sudden you are in those rooms with that otherness that you always carry with you, right?
I never carried it with me because I think that the otherness, like I'm a white presenting ethnic male, so I don't have the same kind of, my ethnicity is not easily identifiable. So I get away with a lot of stuff as a white guy, right? But this is maybe the thing that I never wanted to fit in. So to feel like, for me, this is not about how the word otherness is worked out, but for me, yeah, of course I felt completely different from everybody I was in the rooms with, but that's good.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to feel like I'm a part of that. I want the money and the freedom, right?
Yeah.
Because money buys freedom, but that's it. So that's the idea of feeling enough in a room. I could give a fuck about that. I never did. I grew up below the poverty line. I never once felt like, oh God, never. I don't like their values. I like my values. So
nobody's a villain in their own story.
Yeah, totally. So,
for the most part,
I think there's some people though, I think now in this weird Instagram-y world that we see and YouTube-y world, there are people who I think they know they're villains now. I think that's changing. You're right though. No one
but even if they play themselves as a villain, in their own story, they're not.
Yeah, but somewhere at 4 o'clock in the morning, they look in the mirror and they know they're the villain.
Yeah.
But for them, it's just, there are some people out there who are just wired to their only version of success is when they take something from someone else. I see, there's a lot of guys I used to work with too. And I see them, they're these business moguls, and you listen to them talk online and their Instagram clip culture that they live in. Comics have turned into this too.
Yes, right? Where very much so.
Every bit of success is a way to crush somebody else. Yeah. Not to crush an ideology, but to actually hurt someone who has less than.
Yeah.
Those fuckers are villains.
Can we talk about Burning Man?
Yeah, for sure.
That's something that I find endlessly fascinating about you as somebody who is so, you're very assertive about what you believe and this idea you said, earlier in our interview, that you don't believe in some kind of governing power or, but you are a part of that subculture.
It's a freedom simulation.
Yeah.
That's what I like about it. Burning Man was created in the, but created by and ultimately as a gathering place for a whole bunch of subcultures.
Yeah.
So the hippie crew would show up, the Liberty USers would show up, the punk crew would show up, the anarchists would show up. So its origins are a gathering place for all the subcultures.
Yes.
Again, pre-internet, so you don't have access to all these different groups of people.
When did you start going?
Well, I didn't start going there till like 12 or 13 years ago. So I got there when it was already Instagramming.
Yeah.
Right? In fact, I didn't go to Burning Man partly because of schedule, but mostly because I was like, everything I saw and read about it, I went, no, thank you. I do not need to be around this fucking crew. Then I got there and went, oh, it's so different than I thought it was. It's so different than I thought it was. But what I like about it is it's a week of 24 hours a day of play. It's music, it's art, it's expression, it's fucking weird, it's free. It's a town of...
It's punishing, isn't it?
It's super punishing. It's difficult. But again, I think it should be difficult. There's a lot of talk about how do you make Burning Man more accessible.
It's not supposed to be.
Yeah, I don't mean accessible in terms of like accessibility.
Yeah.
I think there should be accessibility. But how do you make more people be in? I was just randomly one night, I was standing out in front of a piece of art, and the woman who runs Burning Man drove by me in a golf cart, asked me a question. And I looked at her, I said, this is supposed to be dangerous and hard. You should keep it that way.
Yeah.
And she said, I agree. I said, right. So don't make it too safe.
And
Don't make it too safe.
And because it is dangerous and hard, that's where those epiphanies come from.
And also because you're exhausted, right? That's the thing. The thing about Burning Man that I really like.
Elaborate on that for somebody who may not know.
It's,
You have to bring all your own
You have
stuff.
to bring all your own stuff. So you're already tired by the time you get there.
Yeah. There's no money.
No money. There's no exchanges. None of that stuff. You pull up. You're exhausted. You wait in line for many. My first burn, it was almost 24 hours. You waited in line to get in a car.
Yeah.
Pulled over on the side of a road. Like there's nothing there. It's the desert. There's nothing. Once you get past that last tiny town, there's nothing. So you're already exhausted by the time you get there. And then you get in and it's not, the mountains are beautiful. The dried lake bed is beautiful. But what you see are a bunch of trucks, generators. You smell, it's not what you first think it's going to be. You built your camp. Dust storms are blowing in. The sun is super hot during the day, at least it was. And then at night, it's really cold.
Yeah.
Windstorms are coming in. So your body is just battered. So by day 2 or 3, and you're overstimulated. Now, I don't drink there, but if you do, and you do take other substances, you're getting high and you're coming down.
That's part of why I find it endlessly fascinating, because like you're straight edge and you go to Burning Man.
But there's lots of people there. Like, I'm not, I drink caffeine, I drink Coke.
Yeah.
So I'm not like straight edge in that old school way, but there's like AA meetings there. There's NA meetings there.
Wow.
Yeah. There's tons of people who go and are sober. What I didn't expect at Burning Man was how many people who were in their 70s and 80s would be there. Tons. And young kids, and you're like, oh, this is way different. It's just a city. They build a city for a week and then they burn it down. And I like the kind of impermanence of that. I like that it's difficult. Because it's when you're that exhausted and you're battered by the storm, I think that's when you become more open.
Yeah.
And when you become more open in a world where nobody's really open, we're all so self-aware of how we present ourselves. We're so closed. We're so self-conscious.
Yes.
You get to Burning Man after like 3 days, you're just like, wow, this is what it is. I look beat up. My hair is shot. My face is sunburned. Like that. That's when you're just, okay, whatever, man. What's going on? Yeah. Strangers talk to you. I never talk to people. I don't walk up to strangers and talk to strangers. But at Burning Man, somebody they'll talk to you. Yeah. It's just a different experience altogether. So there are lots of reasons why people judge it. Also, again, going back to what I was saying about comedians, I believe that to be true of most people. Whatever most people say about a thing, I do the opposite.
Yes.
And most people in my world would tell me, oh, Burning Man, blah, 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 blah. Then I went, oh, God, you were wrong.
Yeah. You
were wrong. I should have come here a long time ago. I was wrong. I had this preconceived of what it was.
Yes.
And now I go and I think this is the best thing. This is the best thing. Yeah. It was much smaller this year. I don't know how many people ended up showing up. Post-pandemic, no one can afford anything. The peak of the Instagram influencer, 83,000 people there. It's not.
And they've banned those they've put sanctions on the pay to play camps, right?
I think they have worked really hard to try to figure that out, but they still exist.
Yeah.
And it's smaller now, which I don't mind. I actually quite like it. It's in the margins a little bit. And I don't know if it'll go up and down. Larry Harvey, who, the founder, one of the founders, the leader of it, he passed away. So it was naturally things were going to change. But honestly, people can't afford it. It's expensive. And it's not the time. Sorry, for me, it's the time. But we don't live in a time where the counterculture is celebrated by the youth. It's not celebrated by any version of a mass. I guess that's why it's not. It never should be. It's counter. And every now and then the counterculture, like in the late 80s, that post-punk stuff peaked into grunge and, 95, that indie rock scene, the Pavement record and all that. It's just little blips where the counterculture becomes the thing that builds up a critical mass.
Yeah.
Hangs on for a minute. Somebody figures out a way to commodify it, then it goes away. And Burning Man is very out of step, and this is a good thing, with where most youth are today. Burning Man is not about commodification.
Yes.
It's not about social media. It's not about you as a brand. That's what most of the game is now. So Burning Man's out of step with and that's good. And then over time, there will be a group of kids who go, oh, you know what? I miss the real shit. And they'll find a way back. And it's a city of 80,000 people. So you're going to have a lot of weirdos and you're going to have a lot of normies and you're going to have a lot of, like, the plug and play camps are, yeah, sure, there's lots of reasons to criticize them, but I don't mind that, the plug and play camps, because people show up. It's just anything that brings more people. And they make it easier for certain, and it's just fun. It's just fun. That's the key to Burning Man, is it's got to be fun. If it's not fun, what's the point?
And what's a profound experience that you've had there? Be like specifically when you're that because also, did you start going when you were kind of conditioned? Because every Canadian that I know that's gone, who lives here and then goes there, there's that whole other element
Of the U.S.?
No, of the climate.
Oh, the climate.
You know?
Luckily, I've done enough motorcycle camping that the rugged stuff didn't throw me off. I can handle that. And I've been camping since I was 12 years old. So to me, it's that wasn't the issue for me. Not a profound experience necessarily, maybe, is you go there and you realize that, wow, there's a lot of people who have actively made a choice.
No, specifically.
Yeah, well, I'm saying, like, one of the things you see is there are a lot of people who actively made a choice to live off the system, to live away from the system.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful to see. That really impacted me. I went, right, we're all playing the game that we think we have to play, city life. There are a whole bunch of people who just decided to check out. Seeing that was really huge. The first time I walked into the temple, I didn't know that the temple even existed. So they build way off in the distance, they build this enormous structure. They call it the temple. And I rode my bicycle up there for the first time, and I watched a woman write a poem to the man who assaulted her on chalkboard. And she leaned it up against the wall. And I went, oh, I thought I was coming to a rave. What's this? And then you see, I saw a man, this is exactly how it went. I saw a man nailing to the inside the temple, you leave things. He nailed into one of the walls the shoes of his little son who was killed in a car crash. And he nailed the shoes. And then suddenly, to get biblical, like the clay lifted from your eyes, you can see everybody bringing their pain. Picture of their mom, fuck cancer, all these things. You start to see all of this pain and joy and manifestation and all that stuff that I don't necessarily believe in, but it's there. Lots of people do. And you see all of this. And then as you keep going throughout the week, more and more and more. And then all of a sudden you're in this gathering place of a lot of people trying to let something go. And then at the end of the whole week, when you're devastated, tired, you've gone through it, you're ready to leave. At the biggest, when I was there, was like 80,000, maybe 75,000 people gathered around the temple. No music. It's the quietest night. And then they burn the thing. They torch the whole thing. And it's an enormous fire. And the fire, and so what happens is, of course, the ashes go into the sky and they reflect off the fire, the flames. And so now you see these embers in the air everywhere, and these reflections of everybody's pain, everything they're trying to leave there. So when you're really tired, and then you're standing beside a person who is the person who put the shoes of his son, and then you see that guy start to break down and cry. He's going for, this is a catharsis for him. And then he leans his head on your shoulder and you hold him. And he's a stranger, but you're in this moment with him. One year they built a mini temple where, and it wasn't, the Burning Man didn't build it, some camper built it. And it was a mini temple where everybody brought something from their pet who passed away. And then they took that whole mini temple and they put it in the temple, and then they burned that with the temple. So there's just a lot of stuff that really, that I looked at and went, God, that's pretty free. That's pretty free. And I really, really liked that. So that was my first temple burn, was that kind of experience where I kind of went, yo, because you realize that a lot of people are in pain. A lot of people don't have the tools or have found their way yet to feeling better. And so every little thing helps. And this is a thing that helps them. And I think any space that helps a group of people be okay is really important. So for all the bullshit and the chicanery of Burning Man that exists, but that's true of anything.
Yeah.
There's just so much stuff that happens there that doesn't happen anywhere else. And that's what I really like about it.
Yeah. What's something you believe to be profoundly true?
Kindness matters. Kindness matters. That's it. Because everybody has a different opinion of what a system should be. Everybody has a different opinion of what a responsibility of a society or a government should be. Everybody has a different opinion about all that. Kindness is the thing. Kindness, by the way, is not a plan. It's not a plan for making the world a better place, but it's an act. It's a small thing. And so I think ultimately you need empathy, and sympathy is important and all that for sure. But I think kindness is kind of that's the real foundation of what a lot of this could be.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
being here.
Thank you. I also believe that good music matters. I also believe that to be universally true. Listen to better music.
Thank you for never giving your fans a reason to be ashamed of you.
Oh, I'm sure some of them are. That's okay. I'm sure some of them are.
I'm interviewing Strombo.
Wow, that's outstanding. That's outstanding news, Martina. Outstanding. Congratulations. Well done, Martina. Well done. Well earned.